think that we are all here on purpose and with purpose. Now, sometimes we don't figure it out, until we're in our teens or in our 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s. But I do believe, if you keep asking, the universe will, reveal it to you. And there's a couple different things that I'll speak to. So number one, I don't think that we just have one why. I think that we've got multiple whys. Why do you want to be in the business you're in? Why do you want to make money? Why do you want to impact other people? Why do you want to live a certain lifestyle? And as we combine the whys, it's called a why stack. We put one on top of the other till we get a really good picture of what we will no longer settle for until we start moving in that direction.
Welcome to the Cashflow Fight Club podcast. In the Champions Corner edition, I'm Mike Deaton, and together with Ligia, my co-host in life, business, and this podcast, we're taking you into the training room, deep in the dojo, sharing the secrets of what it takes to forge a champion. We're digging deep into mindset mastery, high-performance habits, best-in-class behaviors, and bringing you the tips and techniques that maximize human potential, brought to you from some of the best in the business.
So grab your butts and your seat. Hit subscribe and get ready to up your game. Let's do the show.
Let's do it. Ligia and I have a world-class coach and champion in his own right joining us in the Champions Corner today, Trevor McGregor, or Coach T as he's known in the business. Coach T has been through ups and downs in his life, many different roles in hospitality and operations. He's currently a high-performance coach with over 40,000 sessions. That's right, 40,000 coaching sessions under his belt. So he knows his stuff. Today, we cover so many helpful, insightful, and practical strategies in the episode. From how to find your purpose and why, to practical strategies to get to peak performance, to overcoming failure and limiting beliefs. There is no doubt you're going to have big takeaways from today's episode. Ligia, what was your favorite moment or takeaway from today?
There were so many favorite moments, but one that I want to call out was when Coach T shared how he pulled himself out of the lowest moment, the way he called it, in his life. And it was very relatable because we all go through low moments and we all need to learn how to pull ourselves out of it.
Yeah, I love that too. I mean, it was very relevant and practical and a lot of great tips that he shares and that he took away from that. So big stuff. So grab your pen and make sure you have plenty of room for notes as we welcome Trevor McGregor in the Champions Corner. All right, Coach T, we are so excited to have you in the Champions Corner today. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Well, I am blessed and grateful and thankful to be here and excited for your listeners today, as I'm sure we're going to get into a lot of stuff that is absolutely paramount when it comes to mindset mastery, and that's my thing. So happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much, especially since I guess you're calling in from down under your newfound alternating home there. So I guess it's early morning for you. It's evening here. But yeah, let's dive into it. So today's all about what we call in the Champions Corner. We get into mindset mastery, like you said, some best-in-class behaviors, habits, high-performance habits, all those kind of things. So let's kind of jump in maybe with a little bit of your personal background. And I know you spent a little time in corporate America before you got into coaching full time, but yeah, give us some of the highlights. What pulled you to where you are today?
Well, thank you so much, Mike. And again, it all started out being, born and raised in Canada. So you might hear a little bit of a Canadian accent from me. And, growing up, all I ever wanted to be was an NHL hockey player. I mean, if you're a Canadian boy, Dad had my brother and I on skates at the age of 3. And all you ever want to do is become a professional athlete. And because winter, kind of like Colorado, is a lot of snow and cold, hockey was our thing. And I had the speed, but I didn't have the size growing up. I played at a very high level, but once I knew that I might not make the NHL, just like many of you, we go off to college and university. I studied business, then I went to work in corporate, and I ended up working for a hospitality company that literally had locations in 5 major cities in Canada. And I grew through the ranks as the executive director of operations and was doing a whole bunch of, marketing, HR, finance, all of that stuff. And I really enjoyed it because it was, part of being in the people business. And just like you guys are great people, I love working with people. And that's kind of how I cut my teeth, going through university and getting into the workforce. And I'll take a pause there for any questions, and then the story continues.
Who was your big hockey idol?
Wayne Gretzky by far. I mean, I was a big Edmonton Oilers fan. I believe that, after winning Stanley Cup after Stanley Cup after Stanley Cup, we actually got spoiled. But yeah, I absolutely love Gretzky for all of the things he does, on the ice, but also the way he carried himself off the ice in terms of interviews and doing things for charity and building his family and all of that sort of thing. So definitely a big hockey fan.
That's awesome. In your hospitality days, I also kind of cut my teeth in hospitality through college and for a few years afterwards before I got a foothold in corporate America. Did you find significant learnings or takeaways that kind of helped shape your worldview or things like that, or your coaching mentality even?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I had risen through the ranks, at one point, I remember I had about 500 people reporting to me directly and indirectly in 5 major cities. So I would literally get on airplanes and be in rental cars and, stay in hotels. And I had a young family at the time, but I was always fascinated, why some operations, were outstanding, the kind of the A or triple A. And then we've got the B's. And then, believe it or not, I think in any group, you've kind of got the C's or the dogs. And it wasn't just that, I was trying to help the C's become B's and the B's become A's, because that's ultimately what we want. But I was a big believer, that success left clues. And so I'd watch and see what some of my operators were doing in this city and how they dealt with their teams and how they dealt with their P&Ls and, how they dealt with customer service. And after doing that for many, many years, it became an obvious, kind of a pattern recognition opportunity for me to see, what allowed people to soar and what kept people stuck or in the mud. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yes. I mean, I also, similar to you, spent decades in corporate operations. And so I had early days was a team member within operations, but then, quickly got into managerial and mid-managerial and eventually executive level. And I think as I was listening to you speak, it's both fundamental to being in operations for a while, but also I think it draws you into it, this natural curiosity for what makes certain organizations or functions perform at a high level versus others. So yeah, it was interesting to hear you kind of talk through that, and even I'd never really thought about it in that way, but I had that similar curiosity going, and so I can totally get where you're coming from, and trying to trying to solve the mystery of which variables go into tweaking the high performance formula.
No, so good. And that's where the story gets even more interesting, because it was around the age of 30. I'd been doing this for several years and things were going really well, where the owners of the company said, Trevor, you're a really great employee. You seem to have your finger on the pulse of everything. We're going to start a new brand and we're going to expand that brand. And we'd like you to come in as an investor. Right. And I thought, wow, this is my chance to become rich. And I was literally 30 years old and I was dreaming about the houses, the cars, the trips, and all of that stuff. And, as the story goes, I literally took all my savings, guys. I literally cashed in my, 401k. And I even convinced my own parents, who loved me and believed in me, to take out a 6-figure mortgage on the family home. And I dumped all of this into that restaurant expansion. And things went great for the first year until about 2001, when things didn't go well. And to make a really long story short, we were expanding way too fast in way too many cities. We couldn't hang on. And I literally lost all of that money that I put into that expansion. All of it was gone, never to be seen again. And it became one of the lowest points in my life.
Oof. Yeah. Well,
and how did you navigate through that? How did you transition into like a positive outlook and keep on going? What kind of things you used or tools you used?
Well, it's such a great question, Legin. It's really about, adversity also brings it with it the seed of opportunity. That's a great quote from Think and Grow Rich. I'll say
Yeah.
it again. Adversity brings with it the seed of opportunity. And while I didn't know it at the time, that actually became a tremendous blessing because what does anyone do when they're down and out? Well, they hire a coach. And thank God for me, I found a coach who literally said, Trevor, you're a young man, you're married, you've got 2 children, you got to find a way to get up, dust yourself off, and keep on going. And I said, yeah, but I don't know how I'm going to literally get back to, where I need to be, let alone pay off all those failed loans and even my parents' house. And they said one thing to me that changed my life forever. They said, have you ever thought of investing in real estate? And I said, real estate? Well, I don't know anything about real estate, and I certainly don't have any money to put into real estate. And he said, well, you can use other people's money, buy a property, fix it up, either rent it or refinance it or flip it, and just keep going and going and going. And I said, well, my back's up against the wall. I really didn't have anything else I could try. So I committed to doing it. And I borrowed other money off of other family members and friends, not my parents. And literally, I bought my first property, guys. And that's when I started to see, okay, I'm nervous about this, but maybe there's a way. And that was a condo. And Vancouver was going through some tremendous appreciation from 2003, 2004, 2005 in that time. And so I did that property, took the money out, and I bought a condo and did the same thing. And I took the money out of that and bought my first duplex. And I don't know if you guys have ever discovered cash flow, but when I bought that first duplex, I started to go, oh my goodness, this is crazy. And I refied that, bought another duplex, bought another one, started buying fourplexes. And in just 2.5 years, I made enough money to pay off all of my failed loans. And I paid my parents back in full, but I also had a beautiful cash flowing real estate portfolio on the other side of it. And that was a very, very large hill to climb, and it wasn't easy, but I figured that for the committed, there's always a way. And that's when the rebound of the story started.
I love that. That is so great. And so many great lessons in there in terms of coaching. I love to see, back in the 2000s, maybe it wasn't as in vogue as it is. I don't know about Canada versus the US, but, this whole concept of life coaching and things like that. But it's certainly come a little bit more into fruition within the last 10 years, let's say. I love to see it because so many people have coaches in the professional world, right? Athletes, executives. It's fundamental when you think about it, but it had a bit of a maybe a bad image in some areas. And so I love that. Real estate fundamental. It was fundamental to our transition away from corporate America into a lifestyle of freedom and financial and lifestyle freedom. And those are great. And unfortunately, I'm not a person who looks back with regret, but we found the concept of cash flow later in life, but it's certainly accelerated as we've gone in. I love all of those. I don't know if you have a follow up in there, but
No, I was really curious because I'm a person that has a hard time shaking off regret, or if something happens, if we have a loss, or it's really hard to shake off. And I know that we have to keep on moving. We have to keep on moving forward. And sometimes we just don't have the right tools. We know that we need to move forward, but we don't know how. So I love the concept of finding a coach to help us moving forward.
Well, I love that. And it was really where he said, what is your why, right? Like, what is your why? And not a surface why, but literally, what do you believe you're here to do? Right. And who are you doing it for? And so when I thought of my wife, I thought of my 2 small boys, Matthew and Mitchell, and there I was in my early 30s. I thought, geez, if I'm going to live till I'm 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, I better figure this out. And ultimately, I went back to my hockey days. There were times where we won championships, and there were times where we literally were, given the silver medal. But the silver medals made us better because that would motivate us to go figure out why we wanted to practice, why we wanted to listen to the coach, why we wanted to watch game film, why we wanted to get to the top of the podium. And so when I thought about it in business and in real estate, it was really me, really, really saying, you know what, my children are my why, but I don't want to be an average person going through life. I wanted to be that NHL player, and here I wanted to be somebody who has literally done it in business as well. And that's where I hired yet another coach, even after all of this, because I love my first coach and he'll go down in history as my favorite person, maybe next to my wife and children on the planet, because he changed my life. But I started working with a Tony Robbins coach after that. And he also was instrumental in, really saying, all right, now that you've got this, Trevor, what do you want to do with it? So as I started coaching with him, he was amazing. And as I started to share with him, he kept saying this to me on all these calls. He'd go, Trevor, you're so passionate about business. You're so passionate about people. You're so passionate about real estate. Have you ever thought of, sharing your, genius with other people? And I thought, well, I've helped a few of my son's soccer coaches and hockey coaches get into real estate, but I never thought of doing it, on a bigger scale. And that's when he said Tony Robbins is actually hiring business coaches part-time to help grow the coaching division of Robbins. He says, would you consider putting in an application? I thought, well, I don't have any formal coach training. I've got a business background and education, but sure, I'll throw a resume in thinking I wouldn't get picked. And what happened, guys, is there were over 500 applicants for 20 spots. So I'll say that again, 500 applicants for 20 spots. And I got shortlisted from 500 down to 250, 250 down to 100, and 100 down to 50. And just because you get to that doesn't mean you become a Robbins coach. You have to go to all the events. You got to read all Tony's books. You got to listen to all the CDs and the programs at your own expense, right? And then and only then can you, potentially become part of the team. So I did all of these things at my own expense and my own time. And I remember literally getting a letter from Robbins saying, we'd like to invite you to our, company kind of a retreat thing where they take all these new coaches and vet them to see who's going to come out the bottom of the funnel. And literally I went to this. It was in Orlando, Florida. I'll never forget where there I was with Tony's executive team, and they were grinding us with questions and, really seeing if we had the wherewithal to move through all the adversity that can happen on a coaching session with somebody anywhere in the world. And I went through it. And I remember phoning my wife saying, wow, they're really, really stringent. They're really direct. They're really blunt. I don't know if I'm going to make it through this. And she said, honey, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. So that's what I did. And as the dust settled and it was all over, I graduated as the number 2 coach in the class. And they offered me not just a part-time position, but a full-time position. And that's when I worked for Tony Robbins and absolutely loved it. I spent over half a decade working with Tony as a master platinum coach. And so there I was doing my real estate on one side, coaching on the other. And it was literally, something I became very passionate about.
Beautiful.
That's incredible.
I know you had a question related to why and purpose.
Yes, since I've heard about this concept of finding your purpose, I've been very intrigued, and I know it's a journey, and I have to be honest. And today, I don't necessarily know what exactly is my purpose. But how do you guide the people that you work with to find to realize their true power, to tap into their true potential, and to find their purpose in life?
Well, it's such a great question. And I think that we are all here on purpose and with purpose. Now, sometimes we don't figure it out, until we're in our teens or in our 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s. But I do believe, if you keep asking, the universe will, reveal it to you. And there's a couple different things that I'll speak to. So number one, I don't think that we just have one why. I think that we've got multiple whys. Why do you want to be in the business you're in? Why do you want to make money? Why do you want to impact other people? Why do you want to live a certain lifestyle? And as we combine the whys, it's called a why stack. We put one on top of the other till we get a really good picture of what we will no longer settle for until we start moving in that direction. So that's part one. Part two is really to think about, well, who are you? What lights you up? What's something you're passionate about? What's something that when you do it, time stands still, right? What's something that you can literally monetize if possible? What's something that you can do whether you're in America or you're traveling to Europe or Australia or anywhere on the planet. And there's this really cool thing called ikigai. And ikigai is a Japanese term that really says, what is your passion? What's your vocation? What's your purpose? And what does the world need that you can monetize? And so as you keep working through all of these questions and all of these frameworks and all of the fabric that makes up this Japanese term, I believe that, I'm doing it. I really believe I'm here on purpose and with purpose to coach. In fact, I've now done over 40,000 coaching sessions. And yes, that's an actual statistic. You can hear my voice is a bit raspy, right? But at the end of the day, when I think about, my purpose, my belief in terms of the lifestyle I want to create for my wife, Lisa, and I, and our 3 children, right? Then there's the money that I want to make, the travel, the charity that I want to make sure that we're, working to support. All of that stuff comes from real estate and it comes from coaching. And those are all things that I love to do. Time stands still, people need help, and I can monetize it. So I think as we work through frameworks like that, it starts to open up the door of possibility. What do you think of that?
I love it. It sounds very doable, and I've been thinking that many times we just don't take the time to ask ourselves, what am I passionate about? What lights up my day? What lights up my life? And I think those are the very important moments that we need to take in our lives to really ask those kind of good questions. Otherwise, we will never find out.
Well, I love that you said that. And I think that's beautiful because on the other side of that, you also got to get crystal clear on what you don't want, right?
Yes.
For me,
Yes.
I do not want to be an accountant that's stuck behind a desk. No offense to accountants, but I could not work on numbers on a computer all day long, right? I absolutely am meant to be talking to people face to face or on a voice call, hearing their, wins and hearing their challenges and hearing their obstacles and what roadblocks they've got, and then starting to really unpack that and come up with what I call options, right? And, that's the beautiful thing about coaches is oftentimes they can see things that you can't see. It's almost like that old saying that the inside of the jar can't read the outside of the label. Well, it's true. And so when I can help, any client, and I coach men and women all over America, all over the UK, all over Europe, all over Asia, New Zealand, even Australia, when they start to have these light bulb moments, whether that's in business or in real estate or in capital raising or, how to negotiate a real estate deal or how to buy a business, how to sell a business, how to get out of a relationship that isn't working and into a new one, how to deal with kids or aging parents. I mean, there's no shortage of things that I can do to get perspective and then start to help that client step into possibility. But you're absolutely spot on, and I love that.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, Ligia brought up a great concept that I think socially, at least in Western society, life moves so quickly, right? We're so rushed to get out of high school and either get a job or go into university. And then if you graduate, you also got to get a job. And then you start earning money. And then you have, get involved in a relationship, get married, have kids, get the house, get all that stuff. And those moments for reflection, unless somehow you're mindful about it and you really sit down and do it, they just pass you by because life continues to steamroll on you. And I also do some coaching, and when I love it when people invest in a coach because one, it's an intentional moment where they say, I want to spend some time introspecting or asking a question or learning. And so they've already opened the door to do exactly that and to try and find higher level questions or answers to higher level questions. And so it's but yes, I think the majority of society really just gets in the rat race and continues to go and go and go, and we don't take that time to really step back, sit down, and say, what are those things that light me up? What kind of outcome or impact do I want to make in this life? And as we get older, certainly those things become, closer and closer in our vision and in our psyche a little bit. So we start to do that and ask those questions. And I think you mentioned also a little bit of age awakens that. But yeah, it's that's great. I love the answer and I love the question.
Yes, no, and huge props to you both, right? For the work you do and the coaching you do and the podcast in terms of putting this out to people who are ready, to take things to another level. But yeah, the world has never, been faster. It's sped up so fast. We've got so much going on with, politics and interest rates and pandemics. And are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? And then we've got this crazy weather going on in California or Florida or even Hawaii, and so people tend to hide, right? Because there's so much going on that the only time they really think of planning anything is when they take that 1 week vacation to Mexico a year, right? People spend more time planning their 1 week trip to Mexico a year than they do their business or their family or their life. And that's where
Yes.
coaching can come in. And I'm a big believer that it could be a free coach, but I also believe that if people have skin in the game and they pay to play, that they take it a little bit more seriously. They take it a little bit more, as something that, what is super important because, we value what we pay for. And,
Yes.
we value what level of coach because not all coaches are created equal. We can definitely say that here. And at the end of the day, to each their own. But I'll tell you, Tony Robbins says this, that it's going to be as common for people to have a coach by 2026 as it is to have a dentist, an auto mechanic, right? Or, anyone else that's helping people live a better life. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I tend to believe that, at least directionally, whether it happens in 2026 or whatever. But I do think, and I see it. I see more and more people reaching out and exploring and doing those things. And the stigma, if there is one, starts to change a little bit. And yeah, I mean, you see your neighbors improving and word of mouth happens and all of that. So yeah, I tend to believe that. I'm a big Robbins fan. I know Ligia is as well. So we're actually headed to UPW, Unleash the Power Within, in, I don't know, 4 weeks or so in Dallas.
Yes.
We'll be going and looking forward to that. I haven't been to an event personally, but that's going to
Oh,
be great.
wow. Yeah, well, that's awesome. Before you ask the next question, Lisa and I, my wife and I, we just spent last weekend with Tony Robbins at Unleash the Power Within in Sydney, Australia. And
Oh,
so
nice.
here I am,
Wonderful.
after working for Tony as long as I have, I'm still a big believer in, what he does, who he is, the mission he's on. In fact, we sat in the front row with 10,000 other people at Olympic Stadium in Sydney, and it was absolutely amazing. So for anyone that hasn't done Unleash the Power Within, get to Dallas, or if you can't get there, you can also participate in some of Tony's events virtually these days from home. But you will not regret being a part of Tony's community or tribe.
That's great.
Yes.
Love that. Yeah.
We look so much forward to that. It will be my first event
Yep.
in
Awesome.
person with Tony.
Yeah,
So
and you'll do the fire walk as well. So, you get ready to walk on hot coals. And if that freaks you out or freaks the listener out, I mean, I've done multiple fire walks with Tony. And again, the metaphor of it is if you can walk on hot coals, you can do anything. In fact, Lisa and I, we did the fire walk with Oprah Winfrey back in 2010, back in Los Angeles. And it was a highlight to see her storming across the hot coals and all the other people that were part of that. But yeah, once you get a belief and you start to change your belief systems, you can be, do, and have anything you want.
So powerful. Yeah. Looking forward to it, apprehensively, but I believe in it.
Yes.
So it's okay.
You'll be fine. Trust me, you'll be fine.
Talking about belief system, I did want to circle back a little bit to your inflection point, right? When you kind of went all in on this business venture and had a bit of success, but then ultimately it didn't work out, and you hit what you called your low point. I know you mentioned getting a coach and doing some work, but were there specific mindset or belief system exercises that you also went through in that moment, or even that you still do today? Just curious, kind of on maybe some tangible, um, actual exercises that we can share.
Well, buckle up because this is where it starts to get fun. But yes, I'm absolutely able to, share with you and the listener some of the things that I was doing, that were probably hindering me mindset wise. And then how we can absolutely do, what's called the law of polarity and turn it 180 degrees the opposite way to where it can really take you to the next level. Right. And it really revolves around four little words that all start with the letter S, as in Superman. So I'll go through all four of these letters and I'll kind of give you the negative and the positive connotation to it as we go. But really, that inflection point or that low point was a really tough time for me. I mean, I thought I was a loser. I thought, oh, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't educated enough, that God was doing this to me. I mean, I was angry. I was frustrated. I literally, got in more dust ups with my wife and I gained 25 pounds. And I literally was blaming and shaming and justifying my partners and the economy and 9/11 and all that stuff that would happen. And that wasn't a very good state to be in. So the very first S word is you got to really check in with your state because your state is your focus, it's your language, it's how you're showing up in your mind and body, for whatever trigger is happening to you in your life. Maybe it's something in real estate, that isn't going well, or maybe your spouse said something to you that you didn't like, or your kids are misbehaving, or, Biden and Trump are doing what they're doing. I'm telling you, there's a ton of stuff always going to be going on. And it's not for any of those things to control your state. What controls your state is you, right? And that is by flipping to the other side and saying, okay, even though I've got these negative things happening, even though I'm frustrated, even though I'm negatively and emotionally charged by it, what can I do to get out of that? And the very first thing you've got to learn to do is change your physiology, right? That's just a fancy word for moving your body. Because if you're angry, you're probably tight, you're clenched, you're contracted. So you've got to get up, maybe put on some music, maybe hydrate, maybe, step into some gratitude because, when you've got that attitude of gratitude, your whole physiology shifts. And then you've got to really focus on what I want rather than what I don't want, or what's language that supports what I want to show up as rather than maybe some of the negative language. And you hear this in America all the time, guys. I'll give you some examples for what we call the big three. I mean, if you walk down any street in America, you're going to hear people saying, I don't want to be broke, I don't want to be fat, and I don't want to be lonely, right? Broke, fat, and lonely. That's money, that's health, and that's relationships. Again, we call those the big three. And wherever focus goes, energy flows. So if you say, I don't want to be broke, don't want to be fat, don't want to be lonely, well, that's what your outcome is going to look like versus, hey, I want to be abundant, right? I want to be in great shape and I want to have an amazing relationship with my significant other. We call that a moving towards focus instead of a moving away from focus. And again, the more you change your physiology, the more you change your focus, and the more you adopt powerful language, it's a lot easier to climb out of the negative or out of the rabbit hole and start climbing up the ladder of success again. So the very first word is you've got to know your state management. What do you guys think of that?
Man, I'm right on board with you. So many examples come to mind, but gratitude practice, it's something I've dabbled with over the years. I would say in the last 6 months or so, I've been making it a really steady habit. Every night before I go to bed, just write down three things that I'm grateful for. We do a little visualization in the morning. Also, some priming type examples there with gratitude. So that resonates completely. Physiologically, I can also attest to the fact I love to run and get outdoors, and I'm a person that has to move my body. And
Yes.
this person right here will be the first one to tell me, hey, you might need to go out and run. If I haven't gone and done something in a few days, I'll start to get a little grouchy or do
Yep.
something like that. So yeah, I mean, I'm right on board with you. The power of state is powerful.
And I think
It,
what comes to mind as well is that many times if we go through a hard time, our minds, it's not a switch. We cannot just instantly feel great. But the state aspect, it's like we tell ourselves what we're going to do. It's like you tell your body, you're going to get up right now, you're going to
yep.
hydrate, you're going to
Yep.
walk, you're going to exercise, even though in our minds, we still struggle with aspects of things and things that come up our way, but we tell ourselves what we're going to do. We don't
That's
allow the
exactly right.
circumstances to control.
Yeah. And what I like about what you say there is you have to remember this is the brain telling the body what to do, not the body sitting there in a chair feeling comfortable. You got to take what we call a position of authority over the body and exercise this 3-pound mass between your ears called your brain. And I love that you go for a run or you get up and move, because here's the secret. All emotion is changed by motion, right? Emotion is energy in motion. So the more you move, the more you can get out of a funk or get out of a situation that doesn't feel good and literally get out there and move the body. It'll release all of this biochemistry and endorphins into your body that just make you feel different. And then it's really from that state that you can move forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. You touched on Ikigai earlier. I'm kind of a fan of some Eastern type philosophies and things like that, but I know they also believe in one of the systems of the body being an energy system, and yeah, totally getting yourself moving and allowing that flow to unblock or to get in motion. Is a big fan, or is a big element of that. I'm a fan of Rich Roll. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he has a really popular podcast. One of the things he likes to say is mood follows action, kind of, and so yeah, I'm a big believer in that as well. So it kind of ties in. But yeah, great stuff. Yeah, power of state is undeniable.
So good, guys. So good. And that takes us to the second S word. Are you ready for it? It is your story, right? So number 2 is story. So state is number 1, story is number 2. And I like to teach it in this order, where I want you to think of your story as your identity. Okay. It's who you're being in that moment. And if I go back to my low point, I'll tell you who I was being. And that was a victim to circumstance, right? But when I got up and I thought, wow, if I continue to make decisions and operate from victim is going to bring me more victim circumstance, I had to leave that identity and step into being a what? A victor on my way to victory, right? Because there's only really 2 places that we're going to be. You're either going to be a victim to what's going on in your family or in your business or in your W-2 or with your property manager or your lender, or you're going to choose, no matter what, to be a victor and figure it out. Because I'll tell you this, for the committed, there's always a way. And that's a soundbite that I'm often heard sharing, that for the committed, there's always a way. And you might have to lift up a lot of rocks. You might have to get up early. You might have to stay up late. You might have to work with a coach or a teacher or a mentor, a trainer, a facilitator, read books, listen to podcasts like this. But I'm telling you, there is life on the other side of being a victim, and the God doesn't waste the pain. That is, sometimes God or the universe or source, gives us pain because that's really where we build the muscle. And if I look back at my journey, I would never be living the life I am today if I didn't go through the pain and literally live in that victim. But if I stayed victim, I wouldn't be here. I chose to be a victor and do all of those things. And now today is a much different day. So think of state as number 1 and your story or identity as number 2. What do you guys think of that one?
I love it. Yeah. Power of a story. And that script is consciously and unconsciously continually running in the background or in the foreground. And so, yeah, that's where I think, there's a lot of techniques and different tips out there that anybody can tap into how to reprogram or reinforce positive programming to help that, be it through affirmations, incantations, just reading different elements like that. So yeah, story for us at least is powerful as well, and it's something that we try to consciously work on daily to get that clear and powerful story, overriding the years and decades of counter programming that's been going on in a lot of, you mentioned politics and news and weather and all of these really insignificant. I mean, they're significant in a way, but they're not really as significant as I think we are led to believe, or as that certain forces want us to believe to grab our attention.
Well, you're spot on. And media's job is to, make you have a reaction. And I'm telling you, it's sensational and it's, glorified and all of that. And it just, is not what we need. So ultimately, I love that you shared that. If you do affirmations, incantations, journaling, prayer, grounding, and that's getting into nature and just, touching the bark on the tree, or, being around a body of water, whether it's a stream or a lake or a river or an ocean. I'm telling you, there are many, many ways to shift out of the darkness and into the light, but you got to commit to doing it. And you said the key word, which is daily. Note the word daily. This isn't when I need to or when I'm feeling down. This is an everyday thing, because what happens is you stack it, and then through something called the compound effect, you'll get up in the morning, your feet will hit the floor. And where most Americans hit the snooze button 6 or 7 times, or they say, oh God, it's morning, you get up, your feet hit the floor, you say, good morning, God. Thank you for another day to get out there and make a big difference. And if I make a big difference and add a lot of impact to people, that should absolutely yield me some income. And Tony's got this great quote, guys, where he says that the strongest force in all of us is the need to be consistent with how we define ourselves. And that's our identity. So if you think you're a victim and you get, a lot of feel good from being the victim, you're going to tend to stay there versus saying, that's not where I want to live. I'm going to step into being a victor on my way to victory and start hanging around like-minded people who are also ready to take their life to the next level. Does that resonate?
Yes,
much.
100%.
Yes.
Definitely.
Beautiful.
All right, let's jump into number 3, which I'm pretty sure is sugar.
Yeah, I love sugar. I actually like salt too, but yeah, we'll throw those 2 S words on the pile. The third word, my friends, is your standards. Yes, your standards. So if we've got state, story, standards, what's a standard? Well, a standard is really the level you commit to play at. And unfortunately, a lot of people have a lower standard when, what's preventing them from raising their standard? And it could be in anything, such as your career, your finances, your health, your relationships, your spirituality, getting out there and traveling this beautiful blue planet. Lisa and I love to get out there and see the world. But you've got to really remember that if you're not raising the bar for yourself, no one else is going to do it, right? So when you think about, now we're going to compress all 3 together, and I'm happy to hear, and ask any, take any questions you've got around standards, is once you change your state and your story, that helps you to see that maybe it is time to draw that line in the sand and raise your standards and step into a better, higher version of yourself. What do you guys think of number 3?
Your thoughts on that? Yeah, I don't know. Do you?
Well, it makes so much sense, and I think when you're on a journey to live a better life for yourself and to manifest your best self, you start thinking about those kind of things all of a sudden. Like, what are my standards here? What is the story I want to tell myself? How I want to live life, and you start identifying those standards and wanting more and more and more to live up to them.
That's so good. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
No, just to echo that. I mean, I agree. That's probably one of the 3 so far. That's the one that I would say I maybe am the weakest on, or at least that I devote not quite as much attention to, but super important one. I listened to a podcast recently with Geno Smith, the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, and he came out of high school and college just a hot prospect, spent a year and a half or 2 years in the NFL and got hurt, and spent the next 8 years as a backup quarterback. And in that role, I was so impressed with his mindset that he wanted to be the best in every moment of the day. He talked about, he wanted to have the best cup of coffee when he woke up in the morning. He was the first into the gym and didn't tell anybody. He just got in, got his workout done, and was done before 6, before any of the rest of the team came in. On the sidelines, he was literally mimicking the play as if he were the starting quarterback on the sideline, right? He would read the signals from the coach, call the huddle, go out and in his mind rehearse, go through the play, go through his progressions, feel the way it would feel when he released the ball, all of these things. I mean, and then when Russell Wilson, I guess, who was a starting quarterback, came over, he would make sure he was the first to bring him a towel, or if he needed water, to get him water, or if he wanted to have another perspective of what he saw, he was out there doing it. And I mean, he did that. He was the best he could be, even though he wasn't the starter. And then I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, but he got his call like, hey, we're going to need you to step up. And he had to compete for the job. But he says, in my mind, I already had that job. Like nobody was better than me. And it was because he just had these incredible standards, and not just in the important or what you would consider the significant or the important moments. It was in every aspect of the day. And it's just, I mean, it was just revelatory and a little bit mind blowing to go through that and have that attitude. But I mean, that's a champion right there, right? That's somebody who is preparing for his moment and then is ready to capitalize on it.
Oh my God, you're giving me goosebumps here, because that is such a great story. And you look at any major athlete like LeBron James or Steph Curry or Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, Wayne Gretzky. There's this great quote that says, what you practice in private makes perfect in public. And that's exactly the story that you're telling us. He would literally condition his mind, his body. He'd feel the throw. He'd read the play. All of these things, were part and parcel of getting him to really understand what's called the law of familiarity. And the law of familiarity is when we feel that something is familiar to us, we tend to like it and we tend to do more of it, right? So I'm pretty familiar with coaching. I'm pretty familiar with real estate. You're pretty familiar with real estate, coaching, podcasting, all of these things. And as long as you're doing it on purpose and with purpose, and it's adding value to yourself and others around you, you'll tend to continue to do it, right? And that's why I think standards is so powerful, because, give me anybody anywhere in America and let me look at the standard they hold for themselves, and I can predict where they're going to be a year, 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, right? And it's not that I'm some genius. It's just that, you can't do 40,000 coaching sessions. And yes, I work with Olympic athletes and professional athletes, doctors, Fortune 500 executives. I mean, you name it, I coach them. But literally, I've had a sneak peek into really seeing, what allows people to have explosive growth is when they really, understand that the quality of their life will be in direct proportion to the standards they continually set for themselves and raise the bar regularly. So I love the sports analogies. And so that gives us, a unique look into your state, into your story, and into your standards. What do you guys think?
Yep, it's great. I mean, practical roadmap. It's awesome. Yep. We're on our way to the championship here. So
that's it.
Hit us with the fourth one.
All righty. Well, the fourth one is delicious as well. Do you guys know what it is? It is your strategy, right? Your strategy. And that is, once you've got a state and a story and a standard that supports who you really are and where you want to go, then you need to adopt some sort of strategy to get there. And I want the listeners to think of a strategy as almost like having a roadmap or a recipe or a blueprint or maybe a GPS that takes you from where you are to where you truly want to be, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what I do with a lot of real estate clients, a lot of business clients is, kind of see, well, where are you today? Where do you want to go? What's the short term? What's the long term? What's the vision? Why do you want it? And then we reverse engineer it and start moving in that direction. Because, if you really think about it, the strategy that we all really need only has 3 major components to it. And that is, what is the result or the outcome I want? Why do I want it? And then what do I need to do and who do I need to be to go after it? And then once you get going, you can, start moving towards it and measure whether you're on track or not. And if you are, you keep going. And if you're not, you retool. But really, those 3 things are really what make up the bulk of what the strategy, the recipe, the blueprint, the roadmap, or the GPS is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. One of the things, just to complement that I know Tony Robbins calls out is modeling other people, right? And I think this element of strategy is one where you can shortcut the process or accelerate the process when you find people that are achieving the results you want to achieve, or being the person that you want to role model after, and as you said, backwards engineer a little bit, what are their behaviors? What are they doing? How are they doing what they're doing? And really get a head start on just accelerating that whole process. So strategy, a big piece of it.
Yeah, I love that. And really, it's what we call turning decades into days. Why would you want to take 10 years to figure out something when a coach, a teacher, a mentor, a trainer, a facilitator, books, podcasts, even now with Chat GPT? I mean, there are so many tools at our disposal now that we've never had before. And, if anyone's taking a really long time, to figure something else out, maybe they should really take a look under the hood and see what they're failing, to see or failing to use as, again, success leaves clues.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Awesome. Well, thanks for that. I mean, that is definitely, for anybody listening, that is exactly a roadmap to get to any level of success that you want to get, and just kind of, spending a little bit of time sketching that out for whatever situation a person is in, I think can certainly just lift them and elevate them to the levels of performance that they want to be on. So thanks for running us through that.
Yes.
You're welcome. Yeah, those are delicious. Thank you.
So we've talked a bit about Tony Robbins as a mentor, but do you have other role models yourself, be it a person or maybe books or things that you draw on that help you out?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I'm a big believer in, multiple coaches. So right now, I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. And I've got two coaches that kick my butt regularly. One is in California, one is in Sydney, Australia. I'm a big believer.
Coverage. I like that. It's great.
Absolutely. Day and night. Books. I'm a big audio book guy. I don't read books because I'm a very audio type person. So I'll devour books. I'll devour podcasts. I go to a lot of personal development events that are, in addition to Tony Robbins. Lisa and I have spent a ton of time with Dr. Joe Dispenza, both in Vancouver, and then we went and spent some time with him in Europe before the pandemic. I'm a big believer in, the fact that there's two types of energy. There's physical and mental. So ultimately, a lot of different meditations, different mastermind groups that I'm a part of. Obviously, I'm on stages at events in real estate, and I know that we run in, similar circles. So I think it's important that really, as we take a look at what I'm doing, and it doesn't have to be exactly what I'm doing or all that I'm doing, you kind of got to pick and choose. What is it that would really help you go further faster? Is it an audiobook? Is it a podcast? Is it a coach? Is it an accountability partner? Is it a mastermind, right? Because different strokes for different folks. But I do believe that you do become, the top 5 to 10 people that you hang around with. And so even though Lisa and I have achieved some phenomenal success, and we look back at those days where we were broke, we literally didn't have any money for food, really, because we had lost it all. And now we fast forward to, what's happened today. It's almost mind blowing to think that we live this lifestyle, and it's not to beat on our chest. It's to say that it's available again for anybody that wants to up level or elevate or that's defiantly committed. So as we look back at what got us here, it were the coaches, the masterminds, the books, the audios, the podcasts, going to events, but really getting around people that also had what I call an insatiable appetite to go to that next level. And once they climbed that mountain and they got to the top of that mountain, they saw another mountain range over there and said, let's go climb that. And so they did. And then they tumbled down half of that mountain, got back up, went up. It's really not for the faint of heart. But I do believe that for anyone that is literally looking for more success, more wealth, and more freedom, that, this is what we get to do. We don't have to do it. We get to do it. What do you think of that?
It's wonderful. And one of the things that I was thinking while you were talking is that you can pat yourself on the back because you and your wife sounds like you guys were ready to do the work. You were ready to commit and invest in yourselves, to be coached, to be educated, to grow and to develop. And that's what you can pat yourself on the back, because many people sit around and they don't invest in themselves, but they just wish for things to change, wish for their lives to be better, but they don't want to do the work. And I think that's very powerful.
Yeah, there's just no question about it. And it almost brings up a couple of quotes that come from Tony Robbins, number one coach, and that was Mr. Jim Rohn. Are you guys Jim Rohn fans? Do you know who Jim
Oh,
Rohn
yeah,
is?
I do
Absolutely.
for sure. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, he's got two of my favorite quotes, and I'll give them both to you and the listener. And I want you to really listen to them actively. Don't just sit there and listen to the quote, but listen to what it means to you. And it's even part of my Facebook header. I love it so much. But he says, number one, that it's not the winds that blow on you that will determine where you end up. It's the set of the sail. And I just love that. I'll say it again. It's not the winds that blow on you that will determine where you end up. It's the set of your sail. And who's responsible for setting your sail? Well, you're responsible for yours. I'm responsible for mine. We're responsible to help each other. But at the end of the day, you know what? You're either going to go out there and end up, submerged underneath the ocean by not setting your sails properly, or you can set it and have a magnificent journey. So I love the sales quote. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. But that leads to the second quote that I'm often found sharing, which is Jim Rohn's as well, where he says, "Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better." Right?
Yeah,
And he says it
that's
in
a
this
great one.
Texas drawl that I love. Don't
Yeah.
wish it were easier, wish you were better. And it's really true that, what, we all need to really, stop and look in the mirror and, remember that we might not have it all figured out, because trust me, I still don't have it all figured out at this stage of my life, that I've got a whole bunch more to go and a whole bunch more to learn. And there are other people that I'm going to learn from, but I also have to do the work, right? Like Ligia says, if I don't do the work, nobody's going to do the work for me. So again, it's not the winds that blow on you that will determine where you end up. It's the set of the sail combined with don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. I mean, what else is there to say?
Yeah, so true. And I think this is super timely because you touched on it earlier in the podcast, but now is a moment in history where there you can get caught in the mindset of forces that are happening that can be seen as negative, right? Inflation's up. We're just coming out of a pandemic. Real estate, okay, well, there's a lot of question marks on, is it going to crash? Is it going to go down? Just so many things that can get you in that negative state of mind if you let it. And it's really important to know that we all have so much agency in our lives. And this is one of the things I love about coaching, and one of the things that I try to practice is coaching really for me is about opening up the number of options that people have, right? I think if you get caught in thinking there's only one choice, then it's this kind of powerlessness, hopelessness. I have to do this. If it's only two choices, then that's a dilemma, right? Nobody wants to be caught in a dilemma. It's this or that. We all have so many options at our disposal. And so, yeah, I mean, if investments are going bad, well, there's always opportunities to overcome that and to learn from it and pivot into something else. Or if we lose our job, I mean, we both found ourselves in that spot in 2016, and we just reinvented ourselves out of it. All of these things, and so yeah, I think that is just really a timely and a great kind of a wrap up message, even for just making sure that we have that mentality that we are in charge and we set our sail, and we're ultimately responsible for the course of our life, and just taking the 4 S's to heart, and all of those things, and one step at a time, and you can weather in any storm.
Well, I love all of that. And it's almost like, again, what people really need to hear, because oftentimes we feel like we're an island that will never figure it out. We'll never get out of the W-2 job. We'll never, have the money that we want to put the kids in college or travel the world. It's just not true, because we tend to rationalize. And if you break that word into two, folks, we tell ourselves rational lies. We lie to ourselves all the time why it's not going to work, instead of getting into a better state, a better story, raising our standards, finding a strategy that someone else, has used or modeled and helped to, catapult them to the next stage. But I also have to throw this in as we get ready to wrap, and that is, how hungry are you for it? I mean, are you satisfied with what you've got? Or do you believe that, what the universe has more in store for you? Because why settle for an appetizer when you could have a beautiful meal in front of you? So I asked the listener, how hungry are you for it? But even on top of that, how passionate are you, right? How bad do you want to go out there? And remember that for you to get everything that you want in terms of financial freedom, time freedom, geographical freedom, impact freedom, relationship freedom, whatever you want, the universe has it available for you right now. But are you going to, get up and be passionate in pursuit of it? Because I'll tell you guys this, that anytime I see a client that's hungry and anytime I see a client that's passionate to take their 4S's and really ramp them up, that's when sparks fly and magic happens. What do you guys think of that?
It makes total sense, and I think I find myself, when I'm around hungry people, or when I'm around people that look for growth and look for a better way to live life, it really rubs off. Like you just, it feeds you feed each other, and it's contagious.
So good. So good. And it's absolutely true, right? And, the universe doesn't, make junk, and certainly didn't start with whoever's listening to this. We're all magnificent beings that have been given what's called dominion over. And dominion over, guys, is just a fancy term for the power to choose. In fact, we're the only creatures on the planet that have the power to choose. Every other bird, fish, and, insect, plant operates by instinct. So again, the universe wouldn't have given us the power to choose if we weren't meant to then use it to go out there and make choice. So I'm telling anybody that's listening, it doesn't matter where you're at, again, in your career, your finances, your health, real estate, relationships, travel, all of that, you have to get out of the familiar past on all of that to step into the present to create what we call the predictable future. But it's available for all of you.
I love that. Thanks. That's a great segue into, what does the future hold for Coach T? What are you working on? What are you kind of got going on in your world?
Well, thank you for asking, Mike. And we've got so much going on. I mean, there's only so much bandwidth a person can have. But, being a full-time, coach, a mastermind leader, I've got a big real estate portfolio. My wife and I have a 7-figure book publishing company that we operate. We've got 3 boys, Matthew, Mitchell, and Maxwell. We travel the world. So if we're not in Canada or Australia, we're either in the US or Italy or Hong Kong or, doing something. So, that's kind of, the average day for us. But on top of that, we've got some unbelievable new things that we're launching in 2024. One of them is called Coaching by the Beach, where we literally find power couples like you and other people that are ready to grow together. And we literally, have a Coaching by the Beach mastermind where, you get a certain call every month, and then you get guest speakers and you get the opportunity to mastermind and access to deal flow. But then we meet somewhere magical on this beautiful blue planet twice a year. So we've got, people coming with us to the Maldives in 2024. We got people coming to Hawaii in 2024. And then we've actually got a little surprise in Mallorca as well over in Europe to end the year strong. So Lisa and I are big believers in really finding other like-minded people that are ready to grow and take things to a whole new level. And, we also believe that there's a lot of coaches out there that do it with one spouse or the other. What we're doing is looking for power couples who, live together, work together, play together, and want to grow old together, but also experience some of the beauty and the magic, in other exotic and amazing destinations around the planet. What do you guys think of that?
Oh my God.
That sounds wonderful. I'm hooked.
That's magical. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, it truly is magical. And instead of, doing those coaching sessions in an old hotel in a ballroom, we're talking about being in the presidential suite of beautiful hotels and resorts. And, we coach and then we go have afternoon excursions and, masterminds and food and all of that stuff. And we've been planning this for some time, and we'll have some bigger announcements in the new year. But yeah, I think the world is, sped up so fast that, sometimes people go on a vacation and then they come home and they say they need a vacation, to get over their vacation. Well, This is where you literally have the passport to both, where you go, on a vacation and you literally learn and grow with other people and you really come back a better person and you're ready to kick some butt. What do you guys think of that?
Wow, transformational, irresistible. That's just I love that. I mean, it's kind of right up our alley.
Yes,
it's beautiful.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and then we've got some other things coming out, but they're in progress right now. But the other thing that I'll share is my wife wrote a world-changing book. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I'll share a copy here. It's called An Alphabet for a New Humanity, where this is a book that was written for children, teachers, parents, Montessori's, you name it, where she rewrote the alphabet, where instead of saying A is for apple and B is for boy and C is for cat, right? She rewrote it where, A is for abundance and B is for bravery and C is for compassion and D is for diversity and E is for empathy. And what we thought would be a nice little children's book has turned into a global movement where we've now sold over 100,000 copies of this book. And for every book we sell, we plant a tree. So we've planted trees in California, in Oregon, in California. Where was I going to say? Oh, Washington, even as far away as Africa. And people are eating up this book. And it has really become a movement where now there's course curriculums and there's printables and there's coloring books and there's thought starter cards and all of these things. So for anyone that's curious, it makes a great, great gift for kids or baby showers or that sort of thing. And they can just go to alphabetforhumanity.com and check it out. But there's a wonderful video of Lisa talking about why she got inspired to write the book. And there's even a little cameo from our little guy, Maxwell, reciting all of the letters of the alphabet with these terms, when he was literally 3 years old. It's adorable. Check it out.
That's awesome. How impactful. I love that.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing so much wisdom, and most importantly, giving us a slice of your time to hopefully make a difference in a lot of people's lives. So we really, really, really appreciate it.
Well, I want to thank you for that. And thank you for the work you're doing as it's podcasts like this that, allow us to really listen and not just, listen, passively, but listen actively and say, well, what are some things I can do with the information that I just was given? And my challenge to you and my challenge to all of you that are listening is to take those 4 S's, put it on a Post-it note and stick it up on your wall or on your bathroom mirror or in your shower, wherever you can post it. And for 30 days, really be aware of your state, your story, your standards, and a strategy. And I'm telling you, it's going to compound where, the month afterwards, you're going to be really glad that you did that. What do you guys think of that?
Done.
We'll do that.
Beautiful.
For sure.
That's awesome. And thank you for having me on. This has been extraordinary. And I love the work you two are up to.
Yeah, likewise, Coach. What, for those listeners that want to get a little bit more of Coach T, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, thank you again. And it's pretty easy. I mean, I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. It's Trevor McGregor, McGregor spelled McGregor. Or if you want to find out more about me and my coaching programs and some of the stuff that I offer up, you can head to my website, which is trevormcgregor.com. trevormcgregor.com. I've got some information on how you can get in touch with me. I've also got some courses that I have available for self-study. If you like what you're hearing today and you want more of Coach T, I've got my Rich Beyond Belief podcast, which is a private podcast where, for less than you guys going out for a steak dinner, it's $197. You download 8 weeks of transformational coaching tools, tips, methodologies in areas like goal setting, time management mastery, how to become a master of influence, and so much more, working with the natural laws of the universe, or whatever you feel you need. And you can put that onto your phone. It immediately downloads. You can listen to it while you're driving or working out or, doing household chores or whatever. But it really is 8 of the, most powerful weeks of my best of the best coaching material that I can offer. So for anyone that wants to check it out, go to trevormcgregor.com, scroll down. I've got a video that explains it. And a portion of the proceeds go to charity as well. And I'm coming up with some other products that will be on the website, in the very near future as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, so many great ways to digest some wonderful material. Well, Coach T, again, thanks again. You are making a huge difference in the world and so many lives, truly inspirational. And again, we appreciate it and wish you nothing but the best for you, your wife, and your 3 beautiful children. And yeah, you guys keep on keeping on.
That's it. Well, thank you. I've known you guys for quite a while now. Keep up the great work you're doing, and we'll see you again soon. Take care and bye for now.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
For those of you joining us today, we hope you enjoyed this time in the Champions Corner as much as we did. Got some awesome takeaways, and most importantly, will take action to continue living your best life and maximizing your potential. Mindset is such an important aspect of life, and when coupled with action, delivers undeniably powerful results.
Please subscribe to the podcast to hear from more great guests and get the latest mindset mastery insights and cash flow matchups.
Again, thank you so much for investing your time with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Cash Flow Fight Club podcast.